but we get to sit down with Nick Salm, and Joe talks to him and catches up on his book called The Coach. Nick is a huge part of Northeast Wisconsin. As far as the sports is concerned, he's really integral in what we have today as far as youth football. We've sat down with Nick before, but this is really going to be a chance to sit down and talk about that youth side in his book. Sit back, go pick up a copy of Called the Coach, and listen to Nick Salm describe his experiences.
And literally the first page, you open up, you Called the Coach. And it's that I may serve. I mean, you literally, that's your philosophy at the core, isn't it? Is that you're serving the youth. Feel like this should be in the back pocket of every coach. But what really intrigued me was that you look at coaching as serving. And I don't know if that's a very interesting philosophy. And as a parent, I think that's probably appreciated.
Yeah, and I thank you for bringing that up. I mean, it is right, but volunteering, that's kind of the premise of all volunteering. And I've turned on a lot of paychecks coaching in my day, but you don't get into middle school and youth looking for a paycheck. As a coach, don't get caught up in, hey, we're going to be a winning team, and we're going to just put the formula together, and your team will either win or they won't. But it's all about the experience. I used to say this all the time, was a true record for a youth coach doesn't come until registration the next year.
Right.
And if you lose kids, then your record's not so good. You might have won every game last year, but you lost 7 or 8 nice kids that didn't stay with it for one reason or another. And with these kids, and especially at the middle school, high school level, you start seeing the difference between a 6th grader and an 8th grader, or a 9th grader and a junior. And these kids are growing so much, and physically and mentally, and for them to step away for the wrong reasons, shame on you. And when you get that record, and if you say, hey, we got more kids out and we didn't lose any from last year, now you are a good coach.
For some reason, I feel like so many coaches just want to live out their NFL dream. Their play calls are way too complicated. It's just, they make the game way, way too complicated. And I feel like that's just a kind of an ego thing for them. That's why I really, really like the you're there to serve. And you even talk about it, a couple of paragraphs in, where you don't even talk about the fundamentals of football necessarily. You're talking about youth football is about developing the athlete, right? The building the character, instilling discipline, and creating lifelong memories. That's your words. And that's really the core of coaching. It's not the X's and O's. That's probably about 10 on the list of things to do, isn't it?
Yeah, and I try to break it down into 3, and then when you break out the 3, then it gets kind of into the weeds a little bit. But really, if your goal is to serve your community, and in the capacity of a youth coach, really the fundamental challenge, and it shouldn't be a hard one, but is to protect children. Like, these are our community's children, and they're asking to participate in some opportunity. This example is tackle football, and there's some safety things and so on and so forth. But really, that first one, and you can really break it down into a lot of different ways, is protecting the children from you sometimes by making sure your words matter, and they're not in a manner in which pile on to a kid that's already trying hard but not being able to do it. And then the coaching part, really, where it starts after you can, and it goes into all the protection of the children, from the other kids, even sometimes, or from bullying or whatever. All of it exists. You can't deny it. I've done this a long time, and I've seen, maybe it's not every year in some of these things, but you protect the kids from themselves. They'll beat themselves up so bad sometimes because they want to be just as good as Johnny, and they're not. Well, you know what, Johnny, you might be better than Johnny in 2-3 years or whatever, but you'll likely be much better than Johnny in something else, if not.
Right.
So don't get caught up on it right now. You be your best version of you, and because it's an awesome one. And kids just need to hear that. They need to be thought of like, I'm special just because of me, and I'm good. So, the last thing that I think out of the top 3 things in being a good youth coach is to finally teach football. like
Right.
teach a brand. And you're right. Well, hey, we're going to have 27 run plays. No, we're going to learn how to do 2 or 3, 2 this way and 2 that way,
Right.
and right and left. And then we're going to hope we can put a pass play in, maybe on a play action, and then we'll go from there. So be good at something. And the worst thing you can do is have kids guessing and not knowing where to go. So the kids that are totally dialed in, and we know who these kids are, they're just above and ahead, and they just have the passion and they really care. Those kids are going to excel at a youth age so much faster. So then you think you can put in a bunch more stuff for them. And then everybody else follows behind. And then you're like, well, we'll I'll go back to Johnny. Well, Johnny's got it. And you should too. Well, not everybody learns the same way. And so if you keep up with Johnny and you keep doing that, no, then you can't put anybody else in. And what if Johnny can't make it there? They got a family trip.
Right.
Oh, well, you didn't develop anybody else too, so that's on you. So I think teaching football at the level that you're at, in high school is different and college is much different. And so, but that's not what we're talking about. The book literally stops. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing to me that we overthink this. Oh, we're gonna fool the other team. You don't have to. You
Yeah.
don't have to fool the other team. Put a fun play in. I put that in there. Just put a fun play in to practice before and after practice kind of thing. Whatever, it's a flea flicker or whatever halfback pass, something fun. Because the kids think about it, whatever. And if it should come to a game, and I've used them. I've probably used some kind of gimmicky play every season that I've ever coached.
The development of the youth, you're right. Because in Pop Warner, even middle school, kids develop so different. I mean, the kid that's sitting on the bench might be the star in high school. So that is, I guess, coaches and parents always need to keep that in mind, that the kids develop so differently from probably from 1 to their 20s, right? From birth to the 20s.
So for these kids that need to develop, we call them reserve games. And we try to do them earlier. We've coached a bunch of them. My number one advice to all coaches that get into them is don't win them. Don't try to win. I mean, you're going to win. I mean, I've never actually won a reserve game as a coach.
Yeah.
True story. I've tried. I mean, I try to put the kids in the position all the time, but I won't sacrifice a kid's opportunity to try to win. I won't say, well, let's get Johnny back in there. No. Johnny sits on the sidelines and watches and learns what it's like to be a good teammate from the sidelines. When we do those reserve games, we warm up as a team, and then I have the guys that start normally. They take their helmets off, put it on the sidelines, and they be the best possible teammate they possibly can. If that kid's not playing and doesn't get that opportunity, it might take him 2 or 3 years to go through that development where you just tackled it in one game. So then the next game, we sprinkle them in. And it's one of my philosophies that I put in the book. I love it the most because I don't like the A's or the B's and stuff. And if you're going to rank the kids first team, second team, and you're going to platoon them in and out as a whole unit, it just does nothing good for a kid's ego. Whereas we had this, and he was doing everything right, and he played a reserve game. He's a small, short, middle linebacker, and we had these stud linebackers. And I walked over to our linebacker coach and I said, hey, sprinkle in little Johnny, sprinkle him in, like pull out our starter, put him in there and see how he plays alongside those other starters and whatever. And no kidding, the kid sticks his nose in there, makes a nice little tackle. He slides well. And okay, he can play. Well, now we have film that says, Mom, Dad, look, he can play. Like he's developing, he's doing great. But then think of what you just did to the kid's ego. He played alongside starters and he did great. Okay, so now he earns some more snaps. Maybe not in crucial situations, or maybe, who cares? It's youth. But I just think that if you have this mentality that it's not about winning and losing and it's about development, those kids are going to make mistakes. We got story after story, and I'm serious. every single season we got a kid who stayed with it. They worked. They've hardly said a boo. They finally grew into their bodies. They caught up to their minds, and they were able to be great contributors on varsity their senior year. And they create all these great memories just because they stuck with it. If you get rid of those kids in 8th grade, they never have that experience, and then you lost a starter by the time that varsity class is there.
And you got lost in your fundamentals as a coach, right? Building character, instilling discipline, and creating lifelong memories. If the kid leaves in 8th grade. One of the coolest things you said to me one time, and I never thought about it, but you make them lifelong football fans. I mean, their viewing experiences on Saturday and Sundays, when they're our age, will be because they know the fundamentals. They know what they know what a dive play is. They know what whatever, a jet sweep, any of the lingo, the terminology in football, that plays well, right? That just makes that experience more enjoyable for you.
Yeah, teaching the game and teaching, just what's happening. Like, oh, did you see the audible? Oh, see, let's run it back, guys. Let's see, this is what happened. The quarterback made an audible, but so did the safety. Look, who's going to catch who now? They're audibling. And it's really cool to give them confidence. The neatest things you hear from these kids when they play their last senior game, and I had so many in my son's class, we had so many come up to me and are like, you taught me my love for football. You taught me all this football is and how important it is, and I can't thank you enough. And it gives me tears now. Unfortunately, we got to do that every year. They don't play their last game, and only one team in state finishes with a win.
Well, it leads me to a question that we ask almost every Newsa-Cast guest, in all sports, really. Life is all about overcoming defeat and failure. But for you personally, I mean, how do you overcome defeat? Because coaching is every day you're overcoming defeat.
You're gonna love this one, Joe. You really are. It's a constant development, and you're always looking for the latest or most current version. But overcoming is my favorite thing to talk about. And overcome, it's mental and it's personal. With failure, and coaches can really ruin things very fast, but also it's a culture thing, right? So and I touch a lot on culture on and off, and I probably could write a whole book on culture, but that's not new. A lot of people do. But if you create a culture in which failure is acceptable, and what we don't want is for you thinking about failure. We don't want you dwelling on failure, or when you're trying to be successful, failure gets in the way. We want you to go 100%. And if you drop the ball or something goes wrong or you miss a tackle, whatever, it's acceptable because I love your effort and I know where your head's at. And I know that you didn't want to drop the ball or miss the tackle or whatever it was, or make a bad throw or what. We know that. And all I can do is pile on to somebody who's already struggling with the failure on their own. What I can do is do the opposite and pick them up and say, I loved your effort there. I wanted you to catch it just as much as you, but I want you to catch the next one too. So let's move on. Just today, I brought up your Matt Young interview. And awesome interview. Everybody go watch that interview, because here's a guy who, Jeff Leopold is in our on our coaching staff, and so is Nathan Otto, and those guys coached Matt when he was younger.
Right.
And Matt was an overachiever. He was way behind physically. He was slowed to, and I shouldn't say it, but, between the ears, the kid was always solid.
Yeah.
But what he said in that interview, again, is dealing with failure. That was his. That didn't he say that was his number one biggest thing, was learning how to move on quickly from failure and overcoming, so the next play you were right in the head. And so you could probably elaborate better on what that was, but I watched that. It's a great interview, great kid. How do you not root for that? But he just went from D3 to D1,
right?
And he might start at nickel.
Yeah, he's got a legit chance. I haven't seen the current depth chart, but he's right there.
Yeah, he's out there making plays at Madison, right? I mean, dream come true. So Failure is just a huge part of it, right? But you can't let it get in the way of these kids, and failure affects performance. So you have to have help them overcome it. And I will say, it is harder at the youth level because there's a lot more failure. I had an interesting comment made to me one of the years that I was coaching, and they said, I never, until I went to practice, I never really realized how much you yell. And I said, oh, I didn't think I was much of a yeller. And she said, I didn't either. I didn't think. And then there are a couple other moms there, and they said, yeah, you yell a lot, but you're encouraging when you're yelling, and you're yelling to the team and not at anybody. And I thought, oh yeah, I guess so. And I had this player who was very emotional, great player. And I thought, my goodness, if somebody yells at this kid, they're going to ruin him. And so every time you had to correct or do anything, you pulled him aside. And it ended up, he's not alone. He wasn't the only one that you should do that to. But what I found out is you started getting a heck of a lot more out of the kid when you just pulled him aside and said, hey, I know, but here, yeah, I need more out of you. I need you, I don't want to yell at you in front of everybody, but I need a little more out of you. And here's what I'm seeing, and this is what I'd like to see more. And, so you just talk to him. And it's about trust and respect. And I talk a lot about that in there, that trust is a two-way street. Respect is a necessary element between a coach and a kid. I touched on a lot of those things, and a lot of it has to do with your question. And failure is how are you dealing with failure? Well, it's an all the time thing.
Who does get called to coach? I mean, especially at the youth level, I think a lot of parents maybe do it to maybe try to connect with their kids, but I feel like the really good coaches, and I mean, your staff that you initially built with the Chargers, the Hulkies, the Hansons, those guys, that was an incredible staff, and those guys stuck around for a long time, and they were clearly called to coach. But I guess if you're somebody just listening to this podcast, I mean, how do you know if you're called to coach? I mean, it's got to be more than just wanting to hang out with your kids. I think you're kind of wired that way, aren't you?
Yeah, I do. I think a little bit. And it's interesting you bring that up, because I think that everybody's is a little bit different because it's personal to make that decision, but yet a lot of them are very similar. And I think the book is very intended for those that are wondering. And I think it tells you how to build a staff. Like the book literally will go through how I built my staff year in and year out. And it is very important. And you do not ask coaches back sometimes because they are there only to help their kid, which hurts their kid. And right. I go through that. If you sit and put your kid on a pedestal and you're giving your son all the opportunities and not others, it hurts him, not you, because the kids see that and they resent it because they're just sixth graders or whatever, and that's what you do when you're a sixth grader. You get animosity, and you caused it. So to define who they are, you're right. I think it is a certain person, and it's somebody who says, I'm not afraid, I just don't know what I'm doing.
99.9% of the parents are great. It's that 1% that you seem to have trouble with. But if you communicate with them and you just understand what's happening, that to me, I think that puts out most of the fires.
Right. In adversity is the toughest thing on every coach, right? Is dealing with something that's outside of, what you're planning. And it typically can be parents. And a lot of times parents, boy, I could go on for hours on my experiences with parents. I've had some real doozies over the years.
You have.
Yeah. And you know what? It's not even 80-20. I agree with you. It's not even every year that you deal with a really tough parent. But you do. And some of them you just can't do anything about. And you just, I have a bunch of comebacks that are legit and they work. And I've had to develop them over the years, sadly, but so many are so great. Focus on them. And make sure your assistant coaches don't deal with the problematic ones. Invite them to practice to watch. It's my first thing for criticism. You want to criticize? I'm here every day. I'm working. I'm not seeing what you're saying. Maybe you can help me. Why don't you come to practice and watch? And if you think that, your son should be playing over this kid or that or whatever, they all get equal opportunities, especially on Mondays and Tuesdays. That's where you structure practice. So they have equal amounts of reps. And so if they stand out and they're better than, the kid that plays maybe a little bit more, then they'll play more. And, this just hasn't happened for your son to now, but you're welcome to any practice. Very rarely do they come. And I put a bonus chapter in because I was ready to be done. And I just put a bonus chapter after, and it actually deals with parents and just trying to help out, because I think I'd make a mistake to put this out there and not try to help provide a little bit of guidance to dealing with parents. None of us are great at it. None of us want to do it when it's negative. But there's so many that are so positive. I get the texts like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah. What is the best way to get your book? I mean, I got it out of the back of your trunk. So how do,
That's true. That's true.
yeah.
No, I appreciate you asking. So you type my name in Amazon and my book pops up. It's that
Yeah.
simple. And then you order it, and I think you get it in like 2 or 3 days. It's pretty quick. It's really awesome. I would welcome everybody to see if their feeder systems, their feeder programs have it. And then, if $15 is too much, I get it. But buy one and pass it around. It's a simple read. I mean, I don't know how long they take you, Joe. A day or two. I mean, just picking it up and putting it down.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the kind of book that it would be ragged by the end of the year, because I would literally have it in. I mean, it's not to compare it to religion, but it's a lot like a Bible, where you're just, you want to know something about a Wednesday practice. How should I be gauging a Wednesday practice? You can pick up the book and find information on that, or, how to deal with parents. You can flip to the back of the book. I mean, there's so many different things. The read is really easy, but the information in it is life-changing.
I think this is kind of where you're going with this, Joe, is the takeaways, where
Yeah.
you wrap up the chapter and you
Right.
can literally put a tab in your favorite chapters and just go through the takeaways and refresh you for what maybe happened the day before, or what you want to focus on that day, or whatever it is. It's kind of like the Cliff's Notes right
Yeah.
in the book.
I almost feel like parents maybe would enjoy it as well. At least it's very technical. I mean, it's certainly geared for the coach, but I think a parent maybe would find some interest in it as well.
Is that a premonition? I
Or you should write another book. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's actually the exact topic.
Oh, gotcha.
Um,
All right.
yeah, it really is going to be, and I haven't started it, but it's in the works on thought, and just kind of trying to figure it out. But that is the next one, is to try
Yeah.
to help be a parent. And I know there's some stuff out there, and the problem with it is it gets too philosophical. Most of them that are out there, I'm not trying to reinvent, you know, how to educate children. And you don't want your kid standing out in ways that a lot of the parents want this pedestal, like, oh, they should be a quarterback, they got a dynamite arm. Have you asked your son if they want to play quarterback? Because I have, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
And no, he wouldn't say that. What? No, he did. He told me that. I've asked him several times, because he's a great athlete and he has a nice arm, and I'd love to see if he could do. He has no interest. Nope, that's not true. He needs to try a quarterback. I won't put a kid in a position that he asks me he doesn't want to be in.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And the problem there then, Joe, is that ends up being more about the parent mad at the kid. And it's like, okay, so maybe I got to handle that a little differently. And so you got to think of these situations like you're the kid, and what's going to happen now that your coach had the conversation, let the cat out of the bag, that I don't want to play quarterback and dad really wants me to play quarterback. I mean, there's some really crappy stories out there regarding that kind of stuff.
Oh,
And it's
absolutely.
very, very real, and it's happening, I think, all the time. And maybe that's a new chapter or a new part of the book, or another addition that we put in there, is maybe that is an educational tool, is how to prep your parents to let you coach. And I think I touched on some of it in there, communication wise, back to chapter 22. But maybe I need to go further with it and try to protect some more kids. If my number one mission in the book is protect children, maybe I got to do more. I don't know.
Well, Nick, this is obviously we could talk for hours. We have, I think this will be the third podcast, so you can listen to a lot more of our conversations. But
Right.
no, congratulations, and I'm super
Thank you.
proud of you. I mean, we've been friends for a long time now, and I've seen you do amazing things, and this is just another one of those, is actually writing a book, and a useful book at that, on a sport and a subject that we both find near and dear to our heart.
Right. No, thank you, Joe. I really appreciate this, and you being so supportive over the years in so many different ways, and these podcasts and helping get my story out is awesome. And I really hope people like the book. I hope it does what it was intended to do. It wasn't for profit. It was for getting it out there. There's a cost to doing that. But it really is to try to help the masses and to make great experiences for, number one, kids, but also coaches out there. Coaches, it's asking a lot. It really is. And it asks more and more and more. As I'm a varsity football coach, it asks more and more and more as you go. So taking it, please keep stepping up. Please keep being called, and please take it and take any advice you can, not just mine. My advice all comes through built experience from hundreds of coaches and reading books about coaches and learning lessons and doing it right and doing it wrong. So,
and if for some reason you don't want to coach, you can always officiate.
yeah. Well, I got bad hips. Maybe I should.
Well, Nick, I certainly appreciate this, and people go out and buy the book. It's incredible.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. And thank you.
You can find every episode on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or YouTube, or any podcast app. Follow our social accounts for show updates, local events, inspirational content, or simply for fun. Follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, Blue Sky, or Instagram. Noosa is able to offer grants and scholarships to youth because of the donations and support we have received from the community through the years. People like you. If you are considering donating or providing support through Noosa, please visit redsmith.org for details. Please contact the Newsa-Cast to share your story, offer a suggestion of a particular athlete or sport, or even an idea, or just simply say hello. Newsa-Cast@gmail.com.